I really don't remember. Okay. I don't. I don't know what it was. I'm not.
Okay, let's get this party started.
Great. Well, I think we will officially call the meeting to order here at 10:32. Apologize to get started just a little bit late as we got the technology set up in the room. So thanks to folks online for joining us and to those in the room as well. And I know Courtney Penn is in France, and so her designee is here with us. And so thank you, Sue, for spending time with us this morning. We have just a few things to get through today that were really a continuation of the meeting that we had last time, and we wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to sit with the compensation study and bring to the table any questions that you had. So we appreciate your willingness to put a second conversation around this on the calendar. Our first order of business today, as it always is simply to approve the agenda. You see it before you, that final set of approaches that we might consider adding to our report to accompany the data that we will send across to the General Assembly for the compensation study. So are there additions, changes to the agenda, or might someone make a motion to approve it?
Move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Sam.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ashley. We have a motion and a second in the room. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Around our conversation a little bit, and I'll get us started and then turn it over to Courtney. No consultants joining us today, right?
No, it's just us.
So we can continue our conversation. And I think just to remind everybody, because it's been a few weeks of how we got here, the Senate Enrolled Act 2, our famous SEA 2, which has so many things in it, directed, among other things, for the Elac to complete a study regarding compensation in Indiana, both for early childhood educators and especially because we have Lakshmi here, caregivers at out of school time programs as well. So we appreciate both of those audiences well represented within the recommendations and findings. We are to create an online dashboard that will allow others to access the data that the report put together, and then lastly, to look at people think about what to do with the data that we have before us. So with that, I thought it would be useful just to spend a quick minute too talking about how we got here and the sort of where this report fits in the context of all the things that we've been doing in Indiana. It's been such a busy season. It's easy to forget how far we've come. And so I think, I would point to a number of things that Indiana has done, led by the Holcomb administration, close partnership with the General Assembly to expand access, and then a whole series of things that really were designed to directly support this workforce as well. So in the vein of expanding access, just a reminder that it really started with increasing the income eligibility threshold from 127% to 150% now several years ago. Added to that, the administration took advantage of American Rescue Plan dollars to create some child care expansion grant opportunities and employer-sponsored care grants. Both of those things are really ongoing efforts that we're continuing to see that supply come online as a result of those changes. The General Assembly adopted a tax credit for sort of small and mid-sized employers that are engaged in efforts to support child care. And also directed the administration to simplify the pathways for school districts to become participatory in On My Way Pre-K. So I know Rob Moorhead has been instrumental in bringing that to life as well. So thanks for that. The state has supported the growth of the early learning marketplace so we can have more real-time information about supply and demand, and are also now engaged, and perhaps an update at some future meeting would be great, in developing micro facilities pilots. And we look forward to having those all around the state and learning from them. You'll see that those feature in to today's discussion as well. On the other side of the ledger, we think about all the things that have been done to directly support the workforce. We have, of course, increased reimbursement rates. The state has very meaningfully, and now it's been over a year that those rates have been in effect. And I think most providers would say that that has been very helpful to their ongoing sustainability coming out of the pandemic, especially. And also, as I think just recently in the last handful, again, I hope that providers are taking advantage of that opportunity, and that you're starting to hear from them. I don't know, Sue, if there are updates around that yet. Yes, hearing from lots of providers. So getting a vigorous shake. Yes. You can't see that on the owl. So that's work that's underway literally as we speak. The administration also expanded both Next Level Job and continue to invest in Teach to support all the efforts underway across the state to ensure that our workforce is prepared. And then lastly, really, I think both through some of the regulatory work that the Elac has done and operational changes made through the Family and Social Services Administration, really are targeting putting all dollars available to the classroom by removing some of the historic barriers and making it really just as streamlined as possible for health and safety. So I think it's important that we just think about this report in the context of all these other things that have taken place or are underway, because this is just the next step in what has been and will continue to be a long journey. So with that, I will turn it over to Courtney to just remind us a little bit about what the compensation data itself said, and moreover to then talk about where we go from here.
Great, thanks, Maureen. Yeah, we're just gonna refresh some of these slides that we have from Talent First in our review, just to make sure nobody has any questions or has any clarifications. So feel free to stop me if you have any concerns, questions, or just comments. Just something to focus on here on this slide is to pay attention to the median for all workers and occupations. You can see that all of our child care teachers, lead teachers, aides, floaters are significantly below the median for occupations, and then our childcare administrators actually fall just barely below. So it's not just that we fall below others in our industry as the median income goes. So keep that in mind. And then 81% of EASL workers are below self-sufficiency. So that's something to think about, the amount of money that
Hey, Courtney.
What I'm looking for. Yeah.
Sorry to jump in on you. If you're advancing slides, we're not seeing them. And then also we're having a little technical difficulty, at least I am. You're freezing up at times. And so the audio's been a little choppy. I can make out what you're saying, but you were referencing slides. And if you're advancing those, we're not seeing them on the screen.
Oh, no.
Thanks, Rob. I was just about to say the same.
Courtney, maybe unshare and reshare. That usually fixes it.
Okay, so let me stop my share.
Interestingly enough, you're frozen right now.
Okay. I'm gonna try this again. My Zoom restarted, so maybe that will help. Okay, can you see the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so here to take a
You
look
missed,
at.
you missed some really good ones. They had a lot of animations and
Yeah,
cartoons.
very fancy. So just keep in mind here, this green line across the center is the median, the occupation median wage for anyone, for all of our workers in Indiana. So you can see that our teachers and our floaters fall significantly below, and then our childcare administrators just barely below, up in the and on their own. And I think it's about 98% fall below for a family. I'll have that data in a couple of slides, but keep that in mind when looking at this. Just a refresh too, we're using the acronym EASL because we like acronyms in state government, but also we used it within our work group to make sure that we called out early and school-aged learning. So all of this data is early as well as our school-aged and out-of-school time students. So keep that in mind. Oh, is it gonna? Oh, there is animations. Oh, gosh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. So, think about this one too. This is our overlapping skills. We took the competence them up with other professions. Bank teller, self-enrichment teacher, office clerk, psychiatric aide, and kindergarten teacher. Kindergarten teacher actually had 94% overlap in skills. So that's just something to keep in mind, that they are making about $24.48 an hour, and our lead teachers in early care and education are making about $16.28. This does not take into account degrees, certifications. It just strictly takes into account overlapping roles and competencies. So 2 in 3 lead teachers would earn more than the median for the lowest paid bank. So the areas like self-enrichment teaching and kindergartners have not grown with inflation, so that's something to think about. Here are EASL districts across the state. We did them by DWD regions. The highest wage region was region 10, so Southern Indiana, right across from Louisville, Kentucky. Our lowest ranking was actually Indianapolis, Marion County. And then comparing via PTQ level, all auspices are relatively close except for the LEP family childcare programs. Those are significantly lower, but you see a pretty standard pay across all auspice types. And then we can look at the wage progression. This is how employees' wages change over time, not necessarily promotions or inflations. We're looking at just how their wages start from entry, and then as they continue to work in their building or their program. You can see school-based settings have the most consistent growth for retained employees, and then family center-based programs have larger outliers. Lastly, we see, oh, we have a couple more actually. So that's actually something that's really interesting. And I know that we've talked about how can we incentivize our higher quality programs to really look at their teacher pay and how we can make that better. And we'll talk about some recommendations for that. So, but the one thing we did see is that quality is somewhat correlated with employee expenses. So as quality rating system goes up, the higher percentage that the programs use of their budget to pay their employees as well as their benefits. So that is weakly correlated, but that's something that we should think about. So 2 in every $3 spent roughly goes to compensation for staff and benefits. Okay, the exciting stuff that we're going to talk about. We need to look at some of our promising approaches And we're gonna look at that in a way that we want to talk about that we all have to work together here. We have to combine forces. So I want to take a minute to recognize this is a joint effort. There's no silver bullet here to solve this compensation issue. We all have to work together. We have to combine forces. And by each stakeholder group moving different levers that they have control over, we can make a greater impact for our educators in the field. So as we go through these approaches, we're going to present them in a way that talks about kind of where the responsibility lies and what different things we can all do together to make a greater impact. So we have provider-led approaches, community-based approaches, as well as public sector supported approaches. So let's get going. Our provider-led approaches, providers can engage in apprenticeship programs to train upcoming workforce. We can have providers participate in shared service models, take advantage of economies of scale without sacrificing operational autonomy, consider operational decisions that can free up funding and go towards compensation. So think about things here like technology, working towards full enrollment, engaging with all types of funding, whether that's local, federal, state, bring that all together to create a more robust budget space. In this space, we really need entrepreneurial minded providers to work together and think about what works for their communities. This is going to look different for everybody. It's going to be a lot of creativity and innovation that can happen here. And so I think we have a lot of exciting things coming down the pipes, and we are really excited to see some of our entrepreneurial providers look at different ways that they can modify what they're currently doing to maybe funnel some money towards compensation.
I know that we had hundreds of people and a lot of providers here just last week at the State House to celebrate the Registered Apprenticeship Program. And how many candidates did we have in that?
We have 65 to start.
65. So
awesome.
that's a great number to start with. And I think, yeah, continuing to do more of that. And we had a handful of providers, both school districts and community-based providers that are participating in that effort, if I
Absolutely,
understand
yes.
that correctly. So wonderful
we're
to see.
Yeah, seeing a lot of excitement around that, and excited to see that grow and scale across the state. Kelly, nice work. So some public sector supported ideas and promising practices, I guess, other than ideas. We want to consider policy opportunities in the context of economic outcomes. So we really want to look at how is our economic status changing based on some of these changes that we make? How can we measure that based on the economy? Can we look at how many people will re-enter the workforce based on these changes? What are our wages and how does it change based on these changes? So really looking at the economic outcomes as well as our student outcomes. So that I think is something important that we need to focus on that can really help bring a lot of attention to early childhood and understand the connection between economic success in Indiana and our early care and education programs. Need to look at how Indiana is doing training in other areas and model early learning after that. We're seeing a lot of success in competency-based credentials, micro-credentials, looking through and be successful. And also to see if they enjoy it, right? We don't want someone to spend 4 years getting a bachelor's degree in early childhood education to then realize that they don't like it. So if we can start earlier in high schools, look at our model, create stackable micro-credentials, look at competencies, figure out how to attract people, and then keep them growing. The public providers to increase compensation and support professional learning through quality rating incentives. So as you know, this group released a quality rating recommendation back in December of last year. We want to see lots of updates there and to really focus on what are our providers doing to take care of their employees, because that does actually have an impact on child outcomes, happy teachers, happy kids, more learning, etc. So we would love to see more of that and look at how we can incentivize that through a quality rating system. Expanding childcare eligibility for the workforce. So we did that with our vouchers, but we would also like to take that a step further and ask for additional refund tax credits for our workers. How can we really put money back into the pockets of our childcare workers if it's not directly into their paycheck, but maybe it's through a tax credits aimed at early child spending. So we want to look at families who are spending significant amount of their paycheck on early care and education, how economic drive going. So we'd love to expand that. We also want to develop a universal early childhood data sharing system and public facing dashboard to monitor the outcomes of this. What are the outcomes of our regulatory reform? What are these investments? How are they changing and impacting the workforce? How are they impacting compensation? How are they impacting our shortage of teachers? How are they impacting retention? So those are all things that can be really measured and used to make future decisions. So that's very related to that first bullet of consider policy opportunities in the context of economic outcomes. So moving on, our last set of recognitions. So our community-based organizations can minimize costs for pre-service and in-service learning. That can look like scholarships, that can look like providing training, that can look like all kinds of different things. Early Learning Indiana has their CSP program that has been really successful, classroom support professional. So engaging our community-based providers on ways that we can reduce the cost on that and even speed it up to try and get more people qualified in the classroom. We want our partners to aggressively market the career lattice through CTE and workforce development channels. We want to attract young people. We want to show people the different directions you can go within early childhood. So rather than a ladder where there's just one direction to go up, if you think of it like a lattice, somebody can go all different directions with their degree and their training and competencies and credentials in early learning. So we really want to use that to attract people, and then also use that to encourage public-private partnerships, as well as use the micro-facility pilots to test regulatory solutions and public-private partnerships. How can we step out of the way as the government and allow the public and our private entities to work together to come up with some really innovative, creative ways to help our system? It's been proven that these types of partnerships are very successful. And how can we take what we've learned from other industries and apply it to early learning? So I think that those are some really exciting things that we can do, as well as some very achievable things, which is exciting. A lot of times it's easy to put forth recommendations that are, and our Barbie dream house of what we would want in early learning. But I think a lot of these are really attainable in the next year or even two. So would love to hear your feedback, Elac, from this discussion, concerns, comments, questions, discussion. I open the floor, and then we can move to a vote after that.
Hey, I have a quick question.
I should have.
About that. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I have a quick question about the slideshow, the first one. I thought I remembered that we had in there somewhere a slide that talked about what the self-sustaining wage level was, like $20.22 or somewhere around there, and I don't remember seeing that here because you skimmed through here. But the reason I thought that was important was because we make the mathematical argument later in the conclusions that if there's an investment in early learning, that it actually takes people off some of the social services and so forth. And I didn't see that in there.
And that full set of data will be included in the final report. Mark, we were just excerpting a few of the slides to get us all back in this place in our minds. But that whole presentation from the meeting earlier in September report that really went into the details about sort of the various compensation levels, we would anticipate all of that then becomes part and parcel of the final report.
Okay. Maureen, did you have something else that you wanted to?
Well, I just wanted to thank Mark, but I want to make sure that they can hear us.
Oh.
Can you guys
Can you
hear us
hear us?
well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I did just want to kick off any additional questions with, again, gratitude toward the working group. Your names will all be listed in the report. We know that you gave a considerable amount of time and thought to this effort led by our very own Mark Chamberlain. So thank you to all of you for your participation in getting us here.
Okay.
I just really quickly just wanted to note two things. One, how really important it was. I think even going back to the summer study before last session that really sort of brought us to this place. You know, and I think I appreciate the commentary on the sort of connection between, this is not just about the early care space. This is also as much about the out of school time, the school aged care space as well, and how important it is that we've been really thoughtful and deliberate around including that component of this too. Because when we talk about care, it's really important that we're talking about that full spectrum. All the auspices, not just the environments, but also you know, the sort of developmental promise that these kinds of programs and providers really offer to kids and families. So, you know, I really appreciated the attentiveness in the report and the attentiveness of the work group in developing out recommendations that are not just about our early care workforce, which is important, but it's also one part of the broader story. The second thing, just to note, right, like we know that going into the next legislative session, I think it's been conveyed by anyone who has a mouth that it's going to be tough sledding in terms of the financial picture, right? And I know that in part reflective of you know, sort of what data suggests to our policymaker friends. So I appreciate that there are recommendations here that are in some ways
Rob, did you lose them?
I did indeed, yes.
Same here.
Okay.
Yeah.
The internet connection is unstable.
are we
back?
no
You are.
Yes.
are we back?
Okay.
All right. So I don't want to repeat myself necessarily. I'll just say I appreciated everything. We know that there's still a lot of work to do. There are a lot of opportunities for the work, both inside of government and outside. And I'm really grateful for the advocates and the providers and the families who continue to lift their voices up. To hold us accountable and hold the state accountable for making the right kinds of investments for kids and families.
Thanks, Sam.
Any other questions or comments from folks on the phone? We would love to send, and again, your point well taken. The intention is to send that full report with all of the to other industries, other roles, and also the impact, perhaps the hidden impact, I think is the way the report characterized it on our public resources overall by having the workforce at this part of the wage scale. So we'll be certain all of that gets attached in the final report. So really, I think we just wanted to get confirmation then from this group that we support Courtney sending that across to the General Assembly with our endorsement, inclusive of all of that data that creates, I think, a very factual case, and then these promising approaches identified as well. With that, I would accept a motion.
This is Rob. I'll make the motion with appreciation to the work group for all the details.
Move that we approve the report and forward.
I second.
We even have a third, so I know we're feeling good about this. Any further conversation?
One thing I want to put on the record as well, did we talk about having Sue here with, yes, we did. Okay, Sue is standing in for Courtney Penn. Want to make sure that that's on the record for her vote.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and I apologize for the delay in the technology challenges here in Indiana Government Center South. So we appreciate all of your time in joining an additional meeting, and we look forward to seeing you for our next regularly scheduled meeting, which I think is on the next.
Yeah,
slide, but I can't see.
Yeah,
We look forward to seeing you. It's coming right up.
November.
On November 12th at our next regularly scheduled meeting. I think we anticipate that one being in Indianapolis. And then we will start our
Lost them.
I was gonna say we lost Courtney altogether, huh?
Yeah, I don't even see their little
Uh-uh.
picture.